Welcome to Petty Details, where we skip down a tree-lined lane of conversation on subjects from music to history and everything in between. Join Meg and Monica in our quest for nuggets of knowledge on all kinds of different subjects. Our journey will drop some petty details on you that you didn't know you needed to know until now. Hello and welcome to Petty Details.
Hello, hello.
Today we have Monica and our guest host, Bushmaster Mike.
Hey,
Back by popular demand.
Welcome back, Bushmaster.
thank you. Thank you for having me.
He is tapping in because Cam had something going called life
Yeah.
that, he
How
couldn't
dare
get out
he.
of. Ugh.
Tends to happen.
Yeah.
The best of us.
So I got somebody here, Mike, who has had many conversations with me about music. And
I thought you
before
were
I
going to say something worse, but yeah.
No. And
There's
before I
many
get into that,
conversations.
I want to talk about our newest shirt, which I love. And it's a band tour shirt. It is the
Yeah.
Ice Fog shirt.
Ice
See, hold on,
fog.
wait.
Other way. There you go.
The Serum Run Tour. And on the back, you got all the
stops
dates.
they made.
That's right. This is from our Dogs with Jobs episode.
Yup.
Which is a
Okay.
great one. If you haven't heard it,
Get them while they last.
Yes.
get them while they last, yes. So always subscribe to us. And if you want any merchandise, let me know. But, Mike, one of the
Yes.
conversations that you and I have had in the past was about punk rock.
Punk rock.
So today I want to
Damn
give you some
kids.
history of punk. And then we're going to pepper in some punk moments.
Nice.
And this is a brief history. There's a lot more out there. But obviously I don't want to keep you on a podcast for days. So we are going to go in our Wayback Machine to the 60s.
Yes.
So by the 60s, rock music, which had been the devil's music back in the day,
Yeah, it
was now starting to get tame. And there was this void left in music. And it was a void that needed to be filled by the rebellious culture.
That's what she said.
Yeah.
You got me. You got me.
So I want to give you some examples of chart-topping rock and roll songs in 1969. Okay. These are ones that you should be familiar with. And by some bands, not all of them, but by some bands that were considered very much the devil's music. But the first one is Sugar Sugar by the Archies.
Good song.
Yeah.
That was a good song.
Na Na Hey Hey Kiss Him Goodbye by Steam, which you probably know from baseball games more than the actual song.
Right.
Suspicious Minds by Elvis, who is definitely part of that devil music genre.
Yeah. His hips were the devil.
Yep.
Those hips don't lie.
But his hips
right,
do not lie. Yep. Something by the Beatles, and that's the love song. Yeah.
Like the song Something or just something by
No,
the Beatles?
The song.
The song Something. Although they had quite a few in there, yeah. And even Honky Tonk Women by the Stones. Who again were in that devil music genre, but these are not hard-hitting devil music songs.
No.
None of them. So rock was watered down, and there was a bunch of basically angsty kids who thought that this was a travesty. And Tommy Ramone, who was the drummer for the not yet formed Ramones.
I was going to say, any relation?
No, he's just some dude named Ramon. He saw this and he decided that there needed to be some pure stripped down, no BS rock and roll is what he called it. And that was about 1973 when he said that. So these punk guys come in and they've got something to say, and a lot of it was about like culture and politics, and they don't want to say it through some synthesizer or some horn section. They want like raw rock. And these aren't kids really out looking for a record contract. This is kids who just wanted to play their music and do it themselves, and they wanted to say something. And
They
they
wanted to
don't
get back to their roots, basically.
yeah, they want us to talk about what's going on in the world. They don't want to put out a single. That is not their goal. And these also aren't really like country kids. You're not going to find them in cornfields and stuff like this. These are guys out of New York, they're out of LA, they're out of London. These big cities, most of which by this time in the 70s are getting a little seedy. Think like Times Square in the 70s,
Yo.
which, if you don't know, was pretty much a bunch of porn shops.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah, it was bad. And there's even like a story and a part of a song about Dee Dee Ramone. And it's about him being a male prostitute to get heroin.
Dang.
So this is the kind of like kids that we're dealing with here. But they have a lot of energy. And it's like angsty and fast and aggressive energy that they just want to put out there. So in Detroit, you've got bands like MC5 and the Stooges with Iggy Pop. Who's your favorite out of those two?
Man, Iggy, just raw.
He really is. He's
Just raw.
I don't think I've ever seen the dude with a shirt on.
I was gonna say, even now, he's 70 plus, I would imagine, and I don't think he has bought a shirt yet. So
No. No.
leather jacket, yes.
Yeah,
constant,
no shirt
but
though.
No shirt underneath. So shout out to that guy and all the abs that he still has as a 70-year-old man.
For real. Yeah. And these guys don't just have stuff to say, but they want to do it with pizzazz. Like they want to put on a show, right? And they have some crazy stage performances, like Iggy Pop, who is crazy. He would put food on himself on stage. He would cut himself. And apparently he's even said to have invented stage diving. Have you ever seen him in concert, Mike?
Unfortunately not. That all of that does bring another name to mind too, that is after him. R.I.P. to the late and great Gigi Allen.
Oh, yeah.
He took stage antics to a whole different level. Felonious, if you want to go as far as
he elevated it, if you will.
He took it to the HNL, a whole nother level. He actually is probably going to have his own thing because he's got
Gigi.
a lot. He's got
Gigi
a lot.
And the Murder Junkies, the whole 9 yards. Hank the Third needs to maybe have a little guest appearance in that one too, because those guys, that's a whole offshoot.
The whole genre of their own.
Right.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So I want to tell you a little bit about Iggy Pop and his antics. So he shows off this craziness, I'll call it, on an Australian TV show in 1979. And by this time, he's a solo artist, but it's on a show called Countdown. And he wasn't paying attention to the host questions. He's sitting there blowing raspberries, like literally at the host.
Wow.
He cannot sit still. He's like up and down and moving around. And yeah, he's not making any sense when he does answer. And then he gets to perform. And he doesn't even pretend to actually sing.
Wow.
He gives zero fucks. But he's doing this all in gold pants with no shirt, of course. And he is giving him a show. Like, this is definitely something to see. Probably not the one that Countdown wanted, but
what they got.
Yeah.
What they got. But what did they expect having Iggy Pop up there? So
yeah.
Anyway, it is on the internet if you want to find it. And it's it's entertaining.
It's something to see.
Yeah. So then you've got people like the Velvet Underground, and they're out of New York. And they are managed by Andy Warhol. So they played that crowd a lot. So that's like kind of a whole different thing. Cletus wants to talk about the Velvet Underground, apparently.
Andy Warhol.
Yeah. He's a big Andy Warhol fan, if you didn't know.
Evidently.
He's all, hey, don't forget the New York Dolls too. Okay.
Well, that's right. Yeah, because the New York Dolls are also out of New York. And all of these New York guys are playing out of a club called CBGB's.
Oh, yeah.
Which
R.I.P. to that too.
Dude, yeah. So petty detail, it stands for Country Bluegrass and Blues. It's weird, right?
Huh.
Who would have guessed?
Yeah.
Right.
I was actually shocked when I read that. I was like, what? I guess I thought it was somebody's name or something, but
That's what I thought. It was like
mm-mm.
named after someone, or like, I don't know, some significance other
Nope.
than that.
Country Bluegrass?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So it starts out as a biker bar, but then in 1973, they started playing more like rock. Sadly, they closed in 2006. But the last show played there was a punk icon, Patti Smith. She's like I would call her like a feminist slam poet of punk. Is that a good way to describe her?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Girl power all the way.
Yeah. So it's now a clothing store, I believe. Some shit like that. They do have a nice little plaque, but
it's a clothing store, and I think somebody correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I think the only thing that survived CB's was the bathroom.
Which is sad.
Only because, well, I mean, the bathroom in itself was, I mean, sticker bombed, graffiti bombed, the whole 9 yards, and is such an icon when it comes to photos. But I think it's still kind of saved in the store. But yeah, it's a very bougie store now. But the street in front of it was renamed. Does anyone
what?
know it was?
Yeah.
They named it after the Ramones.
Did they
changed it
really?
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
I had no idea.
I didn't know that either. Did you ever get to go there?
New York is on my bucket list.
Okay.
So that's one spot I want to go to. And then there's a tattoo shop, surprise, surprise, that's called New York Hardcore. It's actually owned by two current punk rock legends, one of which is from Agnostic Front, Vinny Stigma, and then the other co-owner is Lars Fredriksson from Rancid.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
And they do some really cool stuff out of there. Traditional, it seems like it's more like neo-traditional American style tattoos from what I've seen. And then Lars does, from what I've heard at least, Lars does pop in there time to time, and he'll do tattoos and stuff on people. And the walls are lined with all show flyers from all the 80s, like Agnostic Front shows and stuff.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's like Mecca for a guy like me.
Yeah.
I didn't know that he did tattoos also.
He's not a full-timer. He's still in Rancid. Rancid's still doing their thing. But yeah, from what I've heard, that he does skunk tattoos. So he's got skunks across his hairline on his forehead.
Like actual little skunks? Like animal skunks? Okay.
Yeah, it's the skunks with an X, I believe.
Okay.
And
okay.
I would assume there's an affiliation with a group of individuals that run around that you have to earn that name from. So I'll leave that to them. But I mean, I'd wear skunks loud and proud if I had an opportunity to. On my hairline, nonetheless.
Nice.
I would kind of like to see that.
I'd do it. No question. No second thoughts. Get it done. But yeah,
right.
Such a really cool spot. So
that is cool. Well, some of the bands that started out at CBGB's: Blondie, Misfits,
Wow,
the Ramones, Patti Smith. And this one kind of threw me because they aren't punk, but Talking Heads.
Oh wow.
I mean, they might be punk to someone,
No.
but it's more like new wave. Yeah,
Yeah.
like new wave.
Meg's like, no, I don't care.
Yeah, they're not. I love the Talking Heads, do not get me wrong. But they are not punk.
What would you classify them as?
Yeah, I'd call them as new wave.
New wave. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So now all these New York bands, they're all hanging out and they make like their own little community. So they're all buddies out there. And one of the bands that is playing CBGBs in the early 70s is a band called Television. And the singer is credited a lot for having the punk look that everybody kind of knows now. He's got the whole punk vibe thing going on. He's got the messy hair, he's got the leather pants, he's got the ripped shirts. So he is credited with that a lot of the times, although I don't think he was the only one doing it. But then the Ramones kind of take over. And they've got the look. They're doing like really stripped down music. And they play their first CBGB show in 74. And of course, critics don't love them.
Of course not.
It doesn't really matter though.
That's not what they're there for.
It's not what they're there for. So then around 75, Television releases an actual album. And this is like one of the first punk albums to come out because most bands aren't doing that at this time. They're like playing shows for each other.
Mm-hmm.
They're, playing out of somebody's house. They're not trying to get like their music really out there.
They're not trying to fill stadiums at that point.
No. They're not trying to be on the radio. So
That's not punk rock.
no,
yeah,
exactly. But in 76, the Ramones released their first album, and this really like brought punk music to the masses. They're pretty much the first band that anybody who didn't know punk
does now.
Yeah. But meanwhile, these guys are stealing each other's girlfriends. Guitarist Johnny Ramone stole the singer Joey's girlfriend, ended up marrying her, which meant the most punk rock thing happened of all time. The two of them didn't talk except for if they had to talk about music for 15 out of the 22 years that they were together as a band.
So punk rock.
I mean,
they're like, we're still gonna do this, but I hate you.
We're still gonna be bandmates, but don't talk to me.
Don't touch my instrument. Don't touch my leather jacket. And don't touch my lady.
Yeah.
Everything else for you.
Yeah. Well, Johnny did all of those things and told him to go fly a kite.
Yeah.
But we're still gonna be in a band together. And apparently they had a whole lot of other issues going on that didn't help. They just didn't like each other. So
fuel for their music though, I guess.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, did that make the music better? Because
maybe.
I think so.
Maybe
I mean, it does have the whole angst and angry, aggressive stuff going on. Yeah.
Maybe that's why they,
that's where I was
22
going.
years.
Yep. And there are a lot of songs where they're swiping at each other in the song. So.
Oh, like lyrics wise?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Minute and a half at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Come on. Breakups always make the best songs. Taylor Swift has made a whole career out of it. So
please don't say that name on the punk rock episode. No, not allowed.
All right. So then we are going to go across the pond. And you've got this London movement going on at the same time. So there's this dude, Malcolm McLaren, and he is managing the New York Dolls. And he moves back to London. And he decides he's going to open up this clothing store called Sex. And this shop is known for like outlandish kind of clothes, and it becomes like a hangout spot for I know. I don't want to call them outcasts, but
No, that's what they were.
Yeah.
they're kind of
social outcasts.
yeah. I feel bad calling them that, but
It becomes their mecca.
yeah. So this band called The Strand goes to Malcolm's shop a lot, and so does this other dude named John Lydon, aka Johnny Rotten. So the Strand needs a singer, and Johnny needs a band. So Johnny Rotten joins the band, and then they change their name to the Sex Pistols.
Oh.
Now, Mike, do you know, did they take their name partly from this shop?
Rumor has it. Yeah, I think it was a combination of like, hey, this is where we're at. This is who we hang out with. It's got a good ring to it.
It does. So they play their first show in 75. And these guys loved chaos. They're really what you think of when you think of like the punk rock show. They're working the audience, they're getting them riled up. And petty detail, they have one of the most censored songs ever in the UK with God Save the Queen.
Wow.
They also hold the record of saying the word fuck on British television for only the third time in 1976 on Bill Grundy's Today Show. So they got some records out there.
Nice.
Yeah. And they've got their whole story of their own. Just the band, which would have its own episode at some point. But we will go back in the Wayback Machine to one of our earlier episodes. They are the band that had Sid Vicious in it, who may or may not have killed his girlfriend Nancy. So if you want to hear that story, go back to the Murder, Mysteries, and Mayhem episode.
Yes.
That is a sad, sad tale.
It is.
Yeah. But
they might have killed each other, but yeah, we can discuss that later.
I'm not convinced that he killed her, but yeah. Again, whole nother story.
Yeah, they got their own episode.
Yeah. So
put a safety pin in that one.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very
Hey.
nice. So then we get into the late 70s, early 80s, and now you've got all these like subgenres popping up. And this is where you get some of the California punk bands start popping up, like Black Flag, Zeros, and the Dead Kennedys. And because it's California, you get more of the pop sounding punk bands. And I'm not talking
pop
early
like you know
2000 pop punk. It's not like that. But it is
it's
more.
Not bubblegum.
No, but it is more California sounding. I'd say, yeah,
surf punk.
There you go. Yeah, it definitely sounds different than the New York or the London punk. So, and they do have some aggressive bands out there too. But then you've got bands like the Runaways, which had Joan Jett and Lita Ford. It was an all-girl band coming out of California around that time too. And were they the only one, right? Like in that time period that was all girl? I couldn't find another one, but
yeah, because I mean, they definitely had their own spin on with their influence and everything too. Joan Jett and the Blackhearts and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And Lita Ford did her own thing. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Lita Ford, powerhouse right there. Oh, they're all girls. I'm trying to think. Off the top of my head, I can't remember one of them. But going back to the surf punk real quick, my daughter actually wore a Agent Orange shirt to school today, and they never had a more prouder moment in the last couple of days. So
nice.
Parenting done right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it. So another petty detail, the California band The Descendants had a lead singer that left the band for a while to finish his molecular biology degree.
As one does.
Yes, which was referenced in the album Milo Goes to College. But he actually was like a professional molecular biologist. on the
Smart
side,
guy. I
I
mean,
guess.
yeah.
I don't know if this was
Yeah.
a side gig, but one of them was a
This guy
side gig.
has put him through school. No, I don't know.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Yep. And another punk band in California around this time is the Germs, with Darby Crash as their singer, whose name was very fitting. Also, petty detail, I read that Belinda Carlisle was the Germs drummer for like a second, but she never performed with them because she had mono and she was replaced.
Oh, jeez.
Another one to add to that list is there's a current guitar player. He's in a gigantic band currently by the name of Pat Schmier.
Hmm?
And he is, I mean, he's played in a bunch of amazing bands, but he's in the Foo Fighters now too with Dave and the fellas. So he went back to the Germs days too.
Yep.
Probably one of my favorite punk rock stage names.
Is Darby Crash?
Darby Crash, but Pat Schmier, like,
Oh, okay.
that's hilarious. Come on.
That is
That's
pretty
another
funny.
one you wear with pride, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So I believe that the Go-Go's, when they first came out, were actually classified as punk. Is that true?
Oh, you know what? That sounds right. I mean, yeah, because you had the whole 50s wave. You had the whole 50s taste. I don't personally like to put this band in there, but a lot of people will. But like one of my go-tos, one of my favorites, one that's tattooed all over my body, Social Distortion. They get looped into like the 50s kind of flavor-esque of punk rock. And you get there's a lot of subgenres and extremes through that, little tangent, if you will. But yeah, I could see that making sense. I could see how they get looped into the punk rock kind of pool.
Yeah. Like I said, they started out there and they didn't end up there, but although a lot of their touring stories were very punk rock, from what I've heard.
Yeah, I could see it.
The antics.
Pompadours and pomade. Come on.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen.
So what do you know about Darby Crash? Because I don't know a lot about him. There wasn't a lot out there on him, except for that he led a very sad and short life.
I mean, that's exactly where I was going to go with it. Unfortunately, he was not around long enough to give us more of what we wanted and what we seek after. But I think maybe that's the kind of the blessing in disguise, because the stuff that he did give us was outstanding. And just, I think that his demons got the best of him. And there is one movie, and I probably should remember the name of it, but I'm horrible with names. But there's a movie about the Germs, and it kind of portrays his short-lived life and the demons he deals with. And drugs back then were punk rock. You know what I mean? Like it went hand in hand, and unfortunately, everyone did what they did, and some people, they got the best of them, and unfortunately, he is on that list for sure. But for me, like when I was first introduced to punk rock, I thought I knew something, and then I was thrown into the deep end with the Germs, and now look at me. It was life changing to say the least. But no, I unfortunately I've listened to them since as long as I can remember, and you wish that there was more, but that makes you enjoy what is out there and available that much more. So from everything I remember, it was just a matter of like, this is punk rock. This is in your face. This is LA coming at you full steam. And it didn't matter if you were ready or not, because you were going to get smacked in the head with a mic stand. And guess what? You're going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
So,
so if you had to pick between like the New York, London, California sound, which one would you go with?
Oh man, I feel like I've had generations of each. Like So when I used to play, we covered a couple Sex Pistols songs, and it was it was funny because being a bass player, it was atypical based on the fact that most of the shows that Sid Vicious performed, his bass wasn't even plugged in. Not because he didn't know how or um they he didn't want to. It was because he was such a horrible player that they were like, you know what, just pretend, do your stage antics, crush bottles on your forehead, cut yourself open on stage, bleed for the crowd.
Wow.
Don't play your music, don't play your instrument. So for me, like covering Sex Pistols songs and being able to actually play them, not that they're difficult at all, for me that was a thing. So I definitely enjoyed that era. Um, the energy and just the fuck establishment from the English side of things was cool. So I grasped onto that. Um, I would say shortly after that, the next revolution I had was into the New York scene and Agnostic Front and the Misfits. I carry a Misfits tattoo on my arm every day, all day, and some people recognize it from what they actually are, and some recognize it from Hot Topic. It is what it is. If you can get an appreciation for the band, period, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
But Madball, all the hardcore stuff, which again, whole new episode, but subgenre of the New York scene. You have punk and then you have hardcore, and it was like I went through that scene where it was blue collar. You know, you support your brother, you pick everyone up out of the mosh pit if they hit the ground, kind of thing, and it was we're making $5 a day. That means everyone has $5, not me. The whole band has $5, and if we're surviving day to day on $5, then guess what? The whole band is surviving on $5. So I went through that whole revolution, and then my introduction to like LA kind of California punk rock was more like Pennywise and stuff like that.
Which is newer than we're talking about at this
Pennywise is
point in time.
Yeah, Pennywise is a little bit newer, but it's still, to me, like it had a little bit of like surf flavor to it in a way. Definitely the skateboarding, that kind of stuff. And that, I mean, I was a teenager at the point. So that, for me, that was very, very integral of just the punk rock lifestyle, because it was like, okay, if you skateboard, then you have to listen to this kind of thing. It was one of those kind of things. The jocks weren't listening to Pennywise when they were playing football. It just wasn't.
No.
You know what I mean? Like
They definitely weren't.
It wasn't a thing. That belonged to us, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so that that era kind of holds a special place for me too. But I mean, going back to it, if I had to pick, it'd have to be the English stuff, only because the 15-year-old punk rocker inside of me will never die when it comes to saying fuck the man kind of thing, and like bucking the system, questioning everything. I've tamed him down with some Ritalin, like I've been able to kind of subdue him to a point, but he still lives strong and well inside of me, and and there's moments when he will show his face, but yeah, I mean that for me that was huge, because it was like, we're not going to just stand around and tell somebody, let somebody tell us what to do. We're going to do what we want, and then we'll deal with the consequences after the fact. So if I had to pick, it's a very tough decision, but yeah, all the English boys definitely had a big impact, just with everything. But I think punk rock in general was definitely, we don't play with your rules. You deal with us.
Yeah. When you would play the different, I guess, types of punk rock, did they all kind of carry a similar vibe, or did you notice like a different
Oh, yeah.
energy with the different, like California versus New York versus London, like the music that came out of each one, did it carry its own vibe or energy, or is it all kind of like meshes and it's pretty similar?
Like the Ramones, like we talked about it a couple minutes ago, it's a very simple system. You got a 2-minute song.
Yeah.
The time signature is 4/4, so it's just everything punk rock is 4/4.
Yeah.
And if somebody tells you it's not, they're lying to you. It's fast, it's in your face.
Mhm.
Distortion was a huge element. Like how much fuzz can I get through this amplifier? How many,
Right.
you know, how can I blow your eardrums that much faster?
Okay.
Turn it all to 11. And then lyrically, it was a combination of, I would say, definitely, stand on your own, play, play to the beat of your own drummer, literally and hypothetically, and then stand for what you believe in and let the chips fall wherever they may. And but always supporting the next guy, next to you, because a lot of the times being a punk rocker wasn't easy, especially in the 80s, because it was all a matter of like these guys look different, they wear different clothes. You had all the jocks, the rednecks, all those kind of folks that were like, these guys are different, let's beat them up, kind of thing. And so it was like you learned how to fight real fast. You learned how to protect yourself and each other very fast. So it was a weird underground brotherhood kind of thing, to the point where we recognized the fact that we were outcasts, and we embraced it to the point of like, hey, we had blue and purple hair. No fingers pointed, but we had blue and purple hair before it was cool. You know what I mean? Like,
you mean before it was called mermaid hair?
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. We had studs and stuff on our jacket for two reasons. It was one for, you had the aesthetic because you wanted to be like left alone. You didn't want to be approached. But then you also had the aspect of like, hey, if somebody does come after me, they might catch some of their own heat, because this is going to help protect me, because these spikes are all over the place, kind of thing. It provided that pit bull look of, don't come over here, leave me alone, I'm just minding my own business, kind of thing. So
stay away from me.
But it wasn't like the music wasn't supposed to be complicated. It wasn't supposed to be. A lot of these guys didn't even know how to play when they started these bands, right?
I didn't.
They just got up there and they had something to say. So honestly, it was probably more about the lyrics than anything else.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, you can't get away from it. Bad Religion is one big name that comes to mind. For the longest time, I couldn't stand them because I felt like they were like a one tune kind of song. But politics played a huge role. I mean, there's one band called MDC, Millions of Dead Cops. I mean, their stuff. If you told me their stuff was not political, come on, who are you trying to fool?
Right.
Bad Religion and George Bush together, they sold millions of records, and it was like, we hate this, we hate that. Here's, this guy's doing that, this guy's in office, whatever. You know what I mean? And again, for me, at that time when they were big and they were putting out those albums, for me, it fell on deaf ears, because I'm like, you know what? We've heard it. We already know what's going on. We can't control it. We control it to an extent, deal with it, kind of thing. But now looking back, it's like, you know what? That was their voice. We're not happy about something. We're going to make it known. And so lyrical content was huge. And for the for the bands I played in, we how do you say, we were more the blue side of things, if we were comedians. So we went the dirty, just vulgar, push the envelope in that aspect kind of route. And so, but yeah, it was all about the message. This is what we live by. This is what we feel. Now you're going to hear it. So, but as far as the equation when it came to making punk rock, get a couple guitars. The guys might know how to play them. They'll figure it out. Get one guy. There's always one solid guy. It's either maybe a guitar player, so he can keep everyone in line. Sometimes it was the drummer, like he actually knew how to play drums, and he kept everyone in the rhythm section kind of going. The bass player, we never knew what to do. We were just there. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie about it. And as a bass player, I can say that because we catch so much shit for it that we make fun of everyone else, so it's okay. And then the lead singer, the joke for us was, how many lead singers does it take to screw in a light bulb? And it's like, only takes one, and he just holds it, and the world revolves around him. So the lead singer didn't bring shit into practice. He didn't load shit into shows or load out of shows. He carried a microphone, and sometimes he didn't even fucking do that.
Right.
So You know what I mean? But he was the frontman. He put on the show. So it was like, all right, you get a little bit of slack, but the rest of us are going to be carrying the shit out while you're doing it. But no,
Yeah, but I mean,
yeah,
come on, think about it. Iggy Pop, Johnny Rotten, those are the names you know.
fuck that. They have arms and legs. They can carry drums.
It
They
might
can carry
it
drums.
might hurt their face though somehow.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know how,
Yeah.
but it might hurt their face and
Their vocal cords might be
yeah,
impacted.
and they're the face of the band. So
I don't carry any grudges. I don't know if you can tell or not. I don't carry.
you're not bitter at all.
No.
But no, it was the equation to making the music was super simple. If you can play 4/4 and you can play as fast as possible, then you're gonna be okay. Write down some angry, like just like you said, angst.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite words. Write down some lyrics that match it to the music. Hey, guess what? You're in a punk rock band now. So
You have a punk rock
then
song.
you look the part, you act the part, you live the part, and then that's it. So it relatively is a simple equation, but being able to look back and having lived through those years and experience some of the things I did, unfortunately I do wear a lot of memorial tattoos for the brothers in arms that I had that I played music with and did this thing called life with. And then on top of that, I know that the guys that are still around kicking, doing their thing, if I had to make a phone call, I know that they're going to be there for me, no question. And me the same. So it was like I said, it was like, we're the outcasts. We know that, but strength in numbers. Come after us. You might get one of us. Yeah, you might get one of us, but you're not going to get us all.
And like you said, it was a brotherhood. It is. It's one of the few genres of music that you can really see that the loyalty, the brotherhood that just kind of underlies all of it.
Yeah, definitely.
The community.
I think that
yeah.
You could run into people, you may not know who they are, but if you saw, like, for example, some of the patches you would wear or some of the buttons, stuff like that, some of the shirts, just clothing, things like that, those things would were cues, like, okay, you know what, I may not know that person, but I know I can connect with them, and if I need something, we can figure it out together, kind of thing. So flamboyant is definitely a way to do it. That's not my favorite word to describe it, but the essence of a punk rocker is obvious. I mean, you can see him across the street walking, and it's obvious. Like, I think I know what kind of music that kid's into.
Yeah.
He's got a bright red mohawk.
Right.
My buddy Lars, he was a punk rocker through. He still is, but back in the day, he had a fire engine red mohawk that was probably 3 feet tall minimum.
Wow.
And every night we would help him with his mohawk to the point where it was Aquanet and glue and an iron, and we would iron his hair. And
see, everybody thought that it was all the pop people that were aquanetting their hair and keeping them in business, but it was not.
No, it was not.
Yeah, same thing. You scrounged up out of that $5. They're like, all right, we can buy 1 mil share, and then we need these supplies.
Right.
But he's a big Scandinavian kid, and he had a single cab truck, I remember, and he would come pick all of us up, and somehow we would fit in it. But his mohawk was so tall that he had to drive with his head cocked over.
Oh my gosh.
Because he didn't want to. That mohawk wasn't moving. Don't get me wrong. He wasn't going to mess it up. But in order to drive, he had to cock his head over and drive his truck. And it was like, yeah, this is what we do. You know,
that's
what I mean?
Punk rock.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and same thing. You had the guitar in your hand, or you had a skateboard, or you had both. And it was like, it was counterculture, but it was our own culture. We made it up as we went, and then with the subgenres, some of those things, would stand out. So for, like, example, the hardcore kids, Doc Martens, straight laced all the way up.
Or you got the horror punk stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. All the creepers and boot cuts. Leather jacket. I think a stereotypical, like, biker leather jacket is maybe like the one cornerstone of every subgenre of punk rock, because you can dress it up, dress it down, spray paint it, whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter. But from the horror punk kids to the gutter punks, which that was not my vibe at all. I like to shower on a regular basis. And I never did heroin, so like
Yeah.
I couldn't mesh with those kids, unfortunately. But yeah, from those kids to, you know, your normal even surf punks, like everyone had a biker leather jacket, and it was like, all right, cool. Like that's one of the main staples. And I'm definitely glad to have had an opportunity to experience that. And now, like I said, now that I have a little one to kind of inspire with different music, I'm always mix it in. And I'm like, listen to whatever you want, because that's how I discovered the stuff that I liked. But it was also like, hey, I'm going to play this song and I want you to listen to it and tell me what you think.
Yeah.
And there's a few songs that kind of hit for her, and it makes my smile a little bit bigger that day. But the first music she ever reacted to, and another subgenre, but the first time I actually seen her like nodding her head and acknowledging like, hey, this is something different, was some ska, some specials.
That's my daughter too, man. She loves the horns and stuff.
Yeah. So that was a major parenting win. I'm like, you discovered music, and it was something good. It wasn't like that TS name you said earlier.
Well,
but
I
no,
won't get
I
into
can
it,
appreciate
but there is a band which is like totally different, totally off topic, but it reminded me of this, that you would probably like. They're called Tragedy. And they do, yeah, they're not anywhere that you would have known them probably, but they do metal versions of disco songs, and they are the best things I've ever heard.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, that's fantastic. Tragedy is what they're called?
Tragedy, yeah.
Huh.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't know why that made me think of it, but yeah, it's amazing.
There's the gypsy punk, Go Bordello.
That one I didn't find in my research.
I gave it a shot. I'll give them their flowers for what they do, because there is a lot of loyal followers to that band. For me, it wasn't my thing, like having every single instrument and then like a xylophone in punk rock. Just
it's like playing the kazoo. Like
yeah. They had it. Those guys had everything, and shout out to them. You know what I mean? Like they're doing the damn thing. But I'll acknowledge that they're a thing. But so I would imagine somebody enjoys their music a little bit more than I do. So shout out to them.
Well, sadly, a lot of these bands, as you said before, they didn't last very long. They were really making their mark in history, but these bands were kind of imploding. And I'm talking about the 70s, kind of early 80s punk bands. Obviously you've got some of them like the Ramones that'll go forever, but most of them, with their attitudes and the drug problems, they just couldn't hang. So you've got the Sex Pistols, only lasted 3 years.
Wow,
Runaways lasted 4 years.
Jeez.
The initial run of the Misfits was only like 6 years, which is one of the longer runs.
Touring now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, they've all kind of, not all of them, but a lot of them have kind of come back with different lineups and stuff, but they're original groups. The Stooges on their first run, only 4 years.
Yeah.
But like you were talking about, punk is more like a culture. It's not necessarily the music. This music wasn't meant to be mainstream. It started as an underground thing, and I think that's the point. It wasn't built to last. And once it went mainstream, it kind of lost that real message and its purpose.
Which makes sense, because they were trying to stick it to the man. They didn't want to be mainstream. So when you take it mainstream, it's gonna lose some steam, or it's just not gonna hit the same, because that
'Cause you
wasn't
are
its
the man
intended
now.
audience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that wasn't the intended audience, so of course it's just not gonna like stick.
Exactly. Yeah,
You can't be anti and then be like, oh,
Yeah.
hey, download our new record off of MySpace.
exactly. And I think that's where a lot of
MySpace.
people have problems with like the early 2000s punk. I can't even call it punk. It's pop. Basically, they just play it faster.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, that term bubblegum comes into play. And like
But
elephant
they
in the
weren't
room.
doing it for the message. They were doing it for the singles.
They wanted to be mainstream.
They wanted to
the,
be mainstream.
the
Yeah.
notoriety and the
I won't put
There's
all of
what is
them
it?
in that genre, but I think that you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah. They have numbers. There's two bands that have numbers in
Yeah.
their band name.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
and they're still playing.
hmm
It
But I
is what it
can't
is,
like really
you know?
classify them as punk because I don't think that they really are.
It's generational. I'll say that. Because to somebody listening to Dude Ranch, that was their first plunge into it and it
Yeah.
changed their life. I can't take that away from them, but at the same
No,
time,
but
it's like,
it's not pure punk. That's where I'm going with it.
yeah, I would agree. I would completely agree. It's like punk for the masses.
Yeah, exactly.
Punk for the masses. That
Yep.
sounds like an oxymoron.
Yeah. So sadly, most of the founding punk bands were gone by the late 80s. The subgenres kind of took over and ended up basically kind of killing the whole initial idea of punk, which was to be the new rebellious bands that had something to say, not just a band that was like churning out singles. So I say go and check out some of the real 70s punk. See what it's all about.
It's definitely worth a
It'll
listen
change
for
your
sure.
life.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Bye. And
Cletus.
you got to remember what it was trying to say and the time period that it's coming from.
Oh yeah.
Because that really puts it in perspective. It's hard to kind of look at it as, you know, a 2024 mind
Well,
when
context matters, so
yeah, when you're worried about Skynet and stuff like that, when they're, you know, they're worried about nuclear arms race and, you
Yeah.
know.
Yep. Well, and that's the beauty of it is now you can almost in a weird like way relive it just by the popularity of vinyl and the availability of
Yeah.
vinyl. I'm
Oh,
lucky
and there's
to have
tons of stuff on YouTube.
Mhm.
oh yeah. The Cramps. Go check out the Cramps. They were one of the only, if not one of the first bands to play a live show at a mental institution.
Oh,
And
all right.
the Cramps are not an easy pill to swallow, no pun intended.
Yeah.
But there's one video on YouTube where it shows the whole concert and there's folks that are afflicted by different psychological issues and they're on stage with the band the whole time. And they also another thing, the Cramps have amazing stage names that those people still carry to this day. I'll let you guys discover that on your own because it's so awesome. But yeah, they had these folks that were like, you know, schizophrenic, all of those
Wow.
fun things, and they were on stage with the band, and it was a sight. Let me tell you, Johnny Cash and
Wow.
Folsom, awesome, amazing performance. The Cramps at the Looney Bin, I'm gonna say it's right up there with that.
All
All right.
right.
So check that out.
We'll definitely check that out.
Heck yeah.
So I will end with saying, so don't be told what you want to, and don't be told what you want to need. So you just go out there and you stay petty, my friends.
Yes.
And thank you,
Indeed.
Mike, for subbing in.
Yeah, thanks, Mike,
Yeah.
for joining us.
Always.
Mike the Bushmaster.
Speaking of, I gotta attend to some bushes at the once we get done here. So, yo, perfect.
Well, all right then.
On that note.
All right. Thank you, everybody. See you later.
Thanks, guys.
See
Bye.
ya.
Thank you, Monica, our guest hosts, and listeners for getting into the petty details with me today. Stay petty, my friends.